Hey everybody, so picture for a moment the Roman Empire at its height, somewhere around the 1st or 2nd century AD. Massive, intimidating, menacing. A single sovereign nation spread across most of the Mediterranean, constantly consuming, growing, and conquering with ruthless efficiency. The Roman Empire was one of the greatest and most powerful civilizations of its time. With an empire so vast and formidable, one would assume that the leader of said empire, the person taking over the illustrious position that was Emperor of Rome, would be a wise, collected leader with the necessary skills and soundness of mind to govern and guide their colossal nation. And some of the time you'd be right if you look at emperors like Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, Augustus, the emperor who stabilized Rome after Caesar's assassination, or any of the 5 good emperors who ruled during the greatest years of the empire. However, once you look past these few shining beacons of emperorship, you may start to notice that the long line of Roman emperors is a lot less clean than it would appear from the surface. Simply put, a lot of Roman emperors were pretty screwed up. That may sound blunt, but it's true. A surprisingly large number of Roman emperors were either morally dubious, completely insane, or some mixture of both. Whether it was the power going to their heads, an inherited trait, or some other cause, the occurrence of Roman emperors who are deranged, demented, or otherwise unhinged is extraordinarily high, seemingly far more than the general populace. Don't believe me? Well then, let's take a look at some stunning examples of really weird Roman emperors. These will be arranged in order of how weird they are, so I'll be jumping around in time a lot. Keep in mind, virtually everything said about these emperors has been disputed and argued over by historians for many years, as have all records of ancient Rome, but most of this information is acknowledged by most historians. Let's start off with Elagabalus. Elagabalus was named after the Syrian god Elagabal, and he became emperor when he was 14, and ruled for a grand total of 4 years, at which point he was assassinated because nobody liked him. Elagabalus reportedly was incredibly active when it came to relationships, being married 5 times during his 4 years of rule, and engaging in sexual acts with a wide variety of people throughout his palace, even going so far as to forcibly take the virginity of a Vestal virgin, whose job was literally to be a virgin. He was also said to have worked as a prostitute at some point during his reign. Elagabalus was famous for not really doing anything, basically ignoring the affairs of the country he was supposed to be ruling, and he was disliked almost universally. In 222, he was assassinated and replaced by his cousin. We now move on to Nero. Now, out of all the emperors on this list, old Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus is probably the one you're most familiar with. This is due to the fact that not only was he a total dick, he was actually famous for being a total dick. Nero wasn't particularly insane per se, but he definitely wasn't somebody you wanted to make friends with. Here, look at this picture of a bust of him. He doesn't look that bad, but Nero did some very unsavory things during his reign. He started off pretty well, vowing to end corruption and respect the power of the Senate. However, this quickly dissolved as he started having an affair with one of his slaves and killed his mother in the year 59. In the year 62, Nero killed his first wife, took her head, and gave it to his second wife. Nero competed in the Olympics, where he had them create a category for poetry so that he could win it. He also participated in the chariot racing event, even though his chariot had twice as many horses as everyone else. Nero still managed to screw this up, wrecking his chariot and falling off, but he still declared himself the winner. In 64, a huge fire started in Rome, which a lot of people believed was actually started by Nero, but this hasn't been confirmed. What exactly Nero did here is also unclear. Some say that Nero fiddled while Rome burned, some say that he put on a costume and sang on stage, and some say that Nero fought the fire himself. Whatever he did, he later decided that the best course of action in the aftermath of the fire was to build a really big palace right on top of where everything else was. He had landowners make them their heir and then forced them to commit suicide so that he could build over their ruined houses. Then, when Galba was chosen as emperor in 68, Nero got spooked and ran away before being declared an enemy of the state and committing suicide. Nero actually had the distinct honor of being the first in a long line of emperors to do so. Next on our list is commodus, whose name coincidentally is exactly the same as the Latin word that eventually became another word for toilet. I haven't figured out if there's a reason for that, but I like to think there is. Anyway, Commodus is the first person on this list who is probably completely insane. His time as an emperor is credited for essentially ending what was considered to be the golden age of Rome after he took over from his father Marcus Aurelius and totally screwed everything up. Commodus actually had 3 years of practice with ruling because his father let him be the co-emperor before he died, but it seems this did not stop Commodus from being insane. Like Nero, Commodus started off somewhat well, but he soon decided that the affairs of the empire should not take precedence over the stupid things that he wanted to do. Throughout his reign, Commodus became increasingly like a dictator, and he killed a record number of senators and other government officials during his lifetime. However, this was not the highlight of his career. First and foremost among Commodus's weird behaviors was the fact that he believed that he was Hercules. I don't mean that he told people he was Hercules or he liked acting like Hercules. No, he literally believed that he was Hercules, reincarnated, and wanted everyone to call him Hercules. Commodus loved fighting in the arena and just generally loved killing things. In the arena, Commodus would spare his victims, but in his own practice fights he would make sure to kill everything. No matter whether his opponent was a lion, an elephant, a giraffe, or a regular Roman citizen, Commodus did not care and would kill them nonetheless. He would take citizens who were crippled and would literally tie them to each other so that he could beat them to death with his trademark Hercules stick. In the year 192, he held games where he would shoot large amounts of animals every day with bows or javelins. This behavior was too much for even the Roman citizens, who were normally totally down with gladiatorial combat, and between this and his oppressive rule, everybody was pretty pissed at him overall. Commodus' mistress tried to poison him, but it didn't work, so they had his wrestling partner strangle him to death. That did work. And so, Commodus was dead, and everyone was slightly happier for it. Alright, now I've saved the best for last, so prepare yourself for what is, possibly, my favorite emperor. Caligula took over from Tiberius, who was also very strange, but was engaged in things that I don't want to mention in this video. Elagabalus and Nero might have been strange, Commodus might have been insane, but Caligula was the Michael Jordan of being an insane Roman emperor. Most likely due to an illness that afflicted him in October of 37 AD, Caligula was unhinged, unstable, out of his mind, bonkers, screwy, batty, wacko, off his rocker. Caligula was just crazy. He makes everyone else on this list seem like model leaders. Caligula did so much weird stuff that I don't think I can even organize it. I'm just going to lay out the stuff he did and leave the organizing to someone else. Alright. One time, Caligula had a massive amount of Roman boats line up across the Bay of Bali so that he could spend 2 days riding back and forth across it with his horse. This is contested by historians, and some insist that instead he just had a couple of massive pleasure barges in the bay that he would spend his time on. Anyway, another time, Caligula decided that he wanted a war, so he declared war on the sea, having his soldiers attack the waves and pick up seashells as trophies. Throughout his entire reign, Caligula was very fond of dressing up in various costumes, particularly women's clothing, which he would then wear around the palace. He would have senators from his own government run in front of his chariot for several miles. Caligula claimed that he was a god and had a passage built to the Temple of Zeus so that he could have some friendly conversations with him. Caligula is often remembered for his charming catchphrase, which he often repeated, "Remember that I have the right to do anything to anybody." Caligula was so incredibly hairy that he made it a crime to mention goats anywhere in his vicinity because he was afraid people were mocking him. Caligula really liked his horse in Citatus, so he had a stable built of marble for it and fed it flecks of gold mixed with its food. He even tried to make the horse a full senator, although he wasn't able to accomplish this. Finally, Caligula was a very big fan of Alexander the Great, so much so that he is said to have dug up Alexander the Great's corpse so that he could jack his armor and wear it around the palace. Whether this is true or not is unclear. However, this is what Caligula himself claimed was true, and he insisted that people call him Alexander the Great and pretended that he was Alexander for extended periods of time. Luckily for Rome, Caligula was stabbed to death by the Praetorian Guard, being replaced by Claudius. Now, there are many more bizarre and insane Roman emperors, too many to mention in one video. However, these are the ones that I felt best embodied the spirit of insane Roman emperors. So, next time you imagine ancient Rome, picture not only the sprawling cities, the impressive legions, and the massive borders, but also a guy dressed as Hercules beating animals to death, and a really hairy guy leading his soldiers into battle with some water. That's it for this video. Peace out, brothers.